You're listening to Celebrating Simple Life, the podcast. I'm Kimberly Evans, and I've been planning incredible events for the past 16 years. I'm passionate about connecting people, creating purposeful gatherings, and making the most out of every moment. Join me as we learn together how to find joy, celebrate the simple things in life, use events to grow your business, and have a whole lot of fun along the way. Every day can be a reason to celebrate. Cheers to Celebrating Simple Life. Today on Celebrating Simple Life, the podcast, I'm chatting with Jessica Janzen Olstad, Keynote Speaker, Philanthropist, and author of Bring the Joy. She ditched the corporate grind to live her most authentic, bold, and joyful life. She has been using her story with purpose and has committed to sharing her testimony to encourage others to get unstuck and really start living. She is a loving wife, mama, and founder of the Love for Lewiston Foundation, which was created in honor of her son who passed away in November of 2016 from SMA. She spends any given day hanging out with her kiddos, having dance parties in the kitchen, dreaming up designs for her clothing line, fighting and lobbying to find a cure for SMA, and promoting her new book. She lives life to the fullest, listens to the nudges, and seeks joy everywhere she can. Her daily focus is to run towards the roar. She is an authentic, open, and as honest as they come. Tune in to hear our inspiring conversation on bringing the joy, finding light in the darkness, and creating a life with purpose. Tune in. Hello, Jessica. How are you today?
I'm doing awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being on the show. I just am so excited to have a really candid conversation with you today. I just love how open and vulnerable you are. It is absolutely contagious. You probably have people saying this to you all of the time, but I don't know you. I have never met you, but you make me feel like I know you. So thank you for that already before we've even chatted.
Well, thanks. I think the openness and vulnerability sometimes bites me in my ass. If I'm being so open and real. But I think I've just always known, like, I want people to see the real me. And obviously there's only snippets when I share on social media, but I hope that the person that they see behind the screen is also the person that they meet in real life.
Right. Totally. I think that's what I relate to so much. I am similar in the sense where I don't hold back. I'm okay to put it out there and deal with the consequences later. And it's very relatable and it's refreshing. So I'm excited to hear your story today. So I would love for my listeners who have maybe not heard your story or heard of who you are, would love for you to just kind of introduce yourself and your background just a little bit here. And then we can kind of dive into talking all about your new book.
Oh, yeah. So exciting. So my name's Jessica, obviously, Janzen Olstad. You can call me whatever. I go by both. My husband still makes fun of me because he says it's like the most confusing. And people are like, are you Olstad or are you Janzen? And no one gets it. But I'm Jess, and I'm a farm girl that was born and raised just outside of Winnipeg. And then I moved to Calgary here about 13 years ago. And I've been living in Calgary ever since, where I met my husband. We have had 3 kids together, and we're celebrating 7 years of marriage in a month, which is really exciting for us. And then throughout all of that, the journey of a crazy career and being a mama and a founder of a massive charity that's raised over $800,000 in 3 short years, especially with the economy the way it is right now, is such a blessing. And then I have a clothing company called the Lewiston label in honor of my late son who passed. And I do a bunch of fun stuff on social media, like influencer work. And then my book is kind of my latest project that I just completed recently. So I'm always doing something new and crazy and different, which is weird for me right now, where everyone's like, what's next? And I'm like, I'm just pausing and trying to get everything figured out because I'm such a person that's been on the go and doing all the things. And I'm just trying to take a step back, and the things that I have on my plate, just make sure that I'm doing them really well. So that's a little bit about me, but I've got my hand in a bunch of different things, and I'm so thankful for kind of my purpose and my mission and my calling. I believe it is to bring the joy and to be light for those that are in the darkness, because I was in the dark and have been in the dark, and I still encounter the dark. But I've gained some really good tools and made it my life mission to help encourage other people so they don't feel like they have to stay stuck in it.
I just love that. I think that's what makes your vulnerability so much more endearing, is just that it has come from a place of such a huge loss that you are able to bring the joy, hence the title of your book, which I love.
My middle name is Joy, so I can relate.
Yay.
Yeah, I can relate to that. That is often a word just because that happens to be my middle name, that has like come in different ways in life where you feel like you are given names for a reason, and so things happen, and joy has been a big word. So besides the fact that your story is incredible and you bring a great energy to it, the word joy in it would definitely caught my eye from the beginning. So I would love for you to just share a little bit, I guess, about how you were able to. I think it's interesting right now as all of us have been going through the past couple of months of just COVID and learning. The word pivot has been overused.
Oh my gosh.
We won't use the word pivot, but we've all had to kind of change direction in different ways, and everybody has their own unique story of how 2020 has played out in very different ways, yet all of us have a common theme that we have never experienced before in the world as we know it. And so I think that it's interesting what I have found for myself in this, and let me know what you think on this, is that I've had some comparisons with what's been going on in the world from a just kind of standpoint of needing to be a little bit more careful health-wise and hygiene and all of those things, with myself having a child that has a chronic illness, having cystic fibrosis, and that being our normal all of the time, that the COVID level cleaning and the staying away from people who might be sick and all of that whole entire thing is not new. So this did not feel like new information for me, besides the fact that we normally are not isolated in our house quite to this extreme. However, what have you, how has this maybe compared, and I don't mean compare, that's not the right word, but going through, I think, something like you have gone through with losing a child, and I have not experienced that for myself. So that is not something that I can say I can relate to. I can only have the most unbelievable empathy. And as I've read through your book and know your story, I was just weeping. I was just in tears. This is just one of those things where I don't think any human, let alone any mama who has had a child of any age, would not be just absolutely heart-stricken reading about the idea of losing a child. How have you moved forward and created this joy amid something that is most people's, probably including yours, worst fear to have happened as a parent?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we definitely encountered a parent's worst nightmare, losing our child. So Lewiston was 6 months old when we lost him, or just shy of his 3 days shy of his 6-month birthday. My girlfriend, actually, who turned into a girlfriend, a complete stranger, had ordered a cake. And, several months later when we had connected again, she was like, I had ordered a cake and I had to call and cancel it because, we were celebrating every milestone because they said he wouldn't make his first birthday. So we lost our son to a rare genetic disease called Spinal Muscular Atrophy, which is SMA in short. Probably haven't heard of it unless you know somebody personally with it. Although 1 in 40 adults is a carrier, and my husband and I were both carriers, and we had no idea. We had a healthy little daughter, and we got pregnant really quick after having her. And when she was about 4 months old, I was pregnant with our second. So our kids were 13 months
Wow.
apart. Yeah. And the crazy part about our story was I was told I wouldn't be able to have kids, and I was told that I'd be infertile because I had all this reproductive issues and constantly.
Really?
Yeah. So we were like, okay, well, we should start trying. And then, boom, one time in Europe on a family trip, and hello, here comes a baby. And then literally my husband was out of town on business and came home, and we made another baby by basically looking at each other. And so crazy how our story flipped. And I always want to be sensitive to the fact, because I do have so many friends that struggle with infertility, and I thought that would be my issue, but our issue is actually that we're very fertile, and now we have this genetic disease that we pass on to our children, and when they do have it, which our son Lewiston did, they have a 25% chance of having it, and if they have the disease, it typically means death before the age of 2. And at the time when our son was born, there was no treatment, no cure, just clinical trials. And unfortunately, as stuff started to unfold, it was just a little too late. And so when we got the diagnosis that our son would have basically less than a year to live, and the prognosis wasn't really good and there was no hope, I just made it my mission that we were going to bring the joy. And I talked, my whole book is about the nudges that we get and how following the nudges that we have lead to an abundant life. And I truly believe that I was nudged in the hospital to bring the joy to my son's life, regardless of what it looked like, regardless of what our circumstances would be, regardless of where we were, regardless of, it wasn't how we pictured it to be. I pictured maternity leave with my girlfriends and strolling the park and the mall and, taking the classes. And that's not how it turned out. And joy kind of was ingrained in me. I really struggled with mental health and a bunch of different things. And so I just knew that when my son was diagnosed with this, that if it was me in that bed, if it was me with that terminal diagnosis, I wouldn't want people coming and visiting and feeling sorry for me and being really depressed and, full of anxiety and just like kind of a Debbie Downer. I knew that it was like, let's make every moment count if we only have 365 days left. Mm-hmm. And, you hear all these songs, Tim McGraw, Live Like You Were Dying. You hear all these songs and analogies and like, you think you have tomorrow and you don't. And that really became our reality, where it was like, you think you have more time, but the reality is we were gifted the gift of saying, you will have less than a year with your son. Now, you hope that they're wrong. You hope that they have no idea what they're talking about, but that wasn't the case. And so I just stood in that piece of joy, and we made it happen in the hospital and in his final dying breath, that we just made joy our top priority. And then through that, I had been writing a book, and it was originally the love story between me and my husband. And the book obviously totally shifted focus when our son passed. And I just knew that I wanted to share the story. And I was like, if I can bring joy to death, then we can bring joy to the mundane. Then we can bring joy to doing dishes in the kitchen. Then we can bring joy to COVID-19. Yeah. And so that just has become kind of my life's work, because I think I've walked such a dark valley. I want to encourage and inspire other people that they can bring the joy too.
Absolutely. I love that. And I think too, like, here's your little guy. He can't advocate for himself. He can't even talk yet. He's just a little baby, right? And I think right then and there, like as a parent alone, without anything catastrophic happening, that is always our hope for our children. Like, we want to advocate for them in every possible way so that they just can have the life that all of us are dreaming of them to have prior to them even arriving to the earth, right? And so I can totally, I just hear and feel for you in this situation, because I just think that being able to mind over matter, which I can imagine is the only thing that was able to kind of bring the joy there. Like, you just are like, this is just how we have to be, because we do not want this to be a somber occasion if these are going to be the only days we get.
Exactly. And I think, people always say, choose joy. And people always say, it's true though, you get a choice. And I literally just knew we had a choice in this. And so you could just sit in the ugly, tough news, or you could say, okay, like, what does this mean? And how are we going to let this affect our family?
Absolutely. And I love, so there's an excerpt from your book that I want to read. I page 147 of your book, during the diagnosis chapter, where you're finding out you had a hunch that it was going to end up maybe not being the type of, you were hoping it wouldn't be something, and unfortunately it was SMA. And you write, during moments of life-altering hurdles, when life hits you like a freight train, it feels like you'd never be able to get up again. Life feels heavier and darker, and it feels like it would just be easier to stay down. But I'm here to remind you that in brokenness, there is always healing. Fractures are an opportunity for more light to come in. Feel your pain fully. Don't try to mask it. Crumble, cry, scream if you have to, but then get up. You have the strength to. You know you do. You've missed hurdles before. Life has tripped you up before, and you got up. Look for that something nudging you to get up and dust yourself off. The nudge is stronger than defeat. You are resilient. Sometimes bringing the joy in the midst of the darkest days is just simply an act of getting back up. That simple move from the fetal position to your knees to your feet, stand up, rise up, sister, rise on up. I'm
sitting here crying, because I'm like, I needed to hear that today.
I had to put the book down. I had to put in a bookmark, and I had to put it down, because I'm like, okay, I cannot turn the page here. I just got to sit in this for a minute and feel my feelings. Oh, that's good, girl. I read that, and I feel like I can just, while I have not lost a child, having a child that battles an illness every day, and just being a woman, just being a wife, just being a mama, just being an entrepreneur, just being all of the things that you feel like you have to just do and be and just everything. I just read that from so many angles, and I just think that right now, while we're all, I think, kind of trying to figure out what's next and how life is going to look in the next little bit, no matter what our story is, no matter what we're dealing with, no matter, just letting the light back in. And I feel like I needed, as I was reading your book in the past week, every single thing. I'll be honest, was actually having a pretty crap week. Pretty crap week. And everything that I was reading in your book, I felt like the day that I would read the chapter or a couple paragraphs, whatever I could fit in, and read kind of bits and pieces here and there as I could fit it into my day, I just was hearing what I needed to hear. And I was like, legit, the nudges that I know I'm supposed to be listening to are now actually exiting out of a book that's talking about nudges.
Isn't it crazy?
Oh, it's just so good. And I just think that the mind is a very powerful thing. And I just think that it is just so amazing. What I love about it is that I think sometimes there's this misconception that that joy is a place where nothing bad happens. And I love how you reference numerous different ways throughout your book about how you can feel grief and joy at the same time. You can feel anger and I love that, because I feel like I can't even remember where I was listening to a podcast a couple months back, and it was talking about exactly that, where being happy is a feeling. That is something where you can't really be happy and angry at the same time. You're either kind of one or the other, but you can be joyful and have a joy-filled life and experience and still be feeling all the other feelings, because joy is more of a state. It's more of like a place almost to be living joyfully versus it being an emotion or a feeling like what some of the other ones are that we're feeling. And I just love how you've reiterated that in the book.
No, it's true. I mean, I do believe it's like, my whole thing is to bring the joy. And even in COVID, my husband had, a really tough couple of weeks, and I was like, damn it. I was like, hot Ronnie, snap out of it. I'm like, our whole mission is joy. And it doesn't mean that every experience is joyful and we're just skipping along down our street. There will be those tough moments. There will be anger. There will be hurt. There will be resentment. There will be depression. But then we know we've trained ourselves that our default setting is now joy. And that just helps you get through those tougher, more difficult times.
I love that. Oh, and I love, too, how you were able to sort of almost use that as your ministry during the time of being in hospice and being in the hospital with Lewiston, where the nursing staff, the doctors, the specialists, the people that are like supporting him and your family in the best way they could while you're going through the unthinkable, that you are able to turn this and actually be able to spread inspiration and joy and hope to people who I'm guessing were not anticipating that being the reaction coming out of the room of a family who is dealing with something so tragic.
I think, I'm just so glad that we were able to level set. That made such a difference for us. And I remember that day so clearly. It was just so uncomfortable for us. Literally the doctors and the nursing staff and the pharmacy team, they come and they round on your child when you're on the unit. So the team that was seeing us was a green team, and, it's a teaching hospital. So we have all of these residents in different years, and, they were proving essentially to the lead on the case. So they knew what they were talking about. They'd done their research. They're looking at, ways that they can support our family and all these different things. And it's uncomfortable because it's like some of these, some of the things they're dealing with, they're on the neuro unit, and it's, whatever, they have a concussion or whatever it is. And ours was a terminal diagnosis with they couldn't prescribe a medication. They couldn't prescribe a treatment. There was none of those options. And so you could just see how uncomfortable it was. And when I finally just called it what it was, and my husband calls me an over communicator. God bless him.
That's a nice term. I might have to let my husband in on that term.
I feel like if we, instead of using nag, but if we use the word over communicator, And so I'm an over-communicator, but people can't fault you for being honest. And so I just had a frank conversation with the team, and I was like, listen, here's the thing. So my son is dying, and I'm here in the room with you, and I don't understand one bit that you guys are talking about, because they had to use all this medical, terminology to prove that they're actually talking. But I'm like, we're in a children's hospital, and my kid's dying. And so we're going to make this as joyful as humanly possible. And so I just started reading From the Day the Crayons Quit, which is a phenomenal kids book that just it's like you can't not smile when you read it. And it just shifted. I brought in, those funny glasses with the nose and the little mustache, and I made them dance. And, I remember, I think his name was David. He was this pharmacy guy. He just was like too cool for school. I was like, David, if this was your kid, you'd want to make it fun too. And so I just forced them to really get uncomfortable with being and talking about this super openly, but also being okay to be joyful and to have fun, because for me, death is looming at all of our doors. It is. Mm-hmm. And, I could be called home to heaven tomorrow, and, blessed be, I'd get to go be with my son and my father-in-law and all my amazing grandparents and, these incredible people that have gone before me. And so I'm like, death is knocking at all of our doors. And if we all live without that, judgment and the fear of what other people are thinking, and we just have fun. And so when those doctors finally let loose and had a little bit more fun, it changed the feeling and the atmosphere in the room for us. And I believe it changed it for my son. And when you're bedridden and you don't have use of your limbs and your body, there's only so much that you can do. And so we just used what we could. And it was so freeing being able to just call a spade and then to say, this is our circumstance, but here's what we're going to do about it. Mm-hmm. And that shifted everything for us.
Well, and how Justin Timberlake himself did not show up in that hospital room is beyond me. So that's still maybe something to come yet. Someday.
So we dance to that song every day in the hospital, sometimes twice a day, sometimes 5 times a day. The hospice nurses, we got so close with the hospice team because the team is so small, which thank goodness it is. You don't want a big team. But the team was so small, so you know them so intimately. So the girls and I put together a video, and we were going to send it to Ellen. And so we had done all these recordings and these different takes, and we're like, we're sending this to Ellen. We're going to get on the Ellen show. And that was before like stories and sharing was a thing. And so we weren't tagging them at the time. But since then, I've been literally, messaging Justin Timberlake for over 4 years. I've like personally emailed who I think is one of his best friends. And, we've had all these people reach out to their contacts and to producers of shows. And we still have heard nothing. And I was like, you know what? If it's year 5 that it happens, then it'll be year 5. And that song changed how we did things. And it's like, what a blessing.
Totally. I love that. I absolutely love that. So how then, moving forward from here, you still have your beautiful daughter at this point that you are like trying to keep life, quote unquote, as normal as possible, which I'm sure was incredibly challenging. And she was little and didn't know what was going on. How did you manage just as a family during this time to just keep things as regular as possible, having another child that you're still like needing to care for while dealing with something so hard, and yet not wanting to get to be like so emotional and so everything all of the time, knowing that she still needs some normalcy and regular in her life because she doesn't know what's going on.
Totally. I think one of the biggest things that helped us is once our son passed away and right after the funeral, we were gifted Flights Anywhere WestJet flies. And we had a GoFundMe, and, we used that money for medical stuff and the funeral and all that crap. And then we used a good chunk of it to go to Hawaii and to sit on the beach and to be ourselves. And we chose not to bring our daughter on that trip. She was not even 2 at the time.
Right.
So you're like 18 months. I mean, that flight alone is not, necessarily the best for little kids. And so we took that time selfishly for ourselves as a couple just to be and veg out. And I was so blessed, like my husband literally every morning, we were up and at the gym at like 5:30. And, we're eating healthy food and going on adventures and exploring. And we didn't just sit there with the blinds drawn, which I think made a huge difference. And we just gave ourselves the time to heal, but I think we did it in a really healthy way because it is really easy to stay stuck and to stay stagnant in, in a room where the blinds are drawn and you don't let the light in. And we chose Hawaii. I'd always dreamt of going there, and we got to go and experience, and we reconnected as a couple. Everything was based on like, how are we going to keep our son alive? What's the next best decision to keep our son alive? And I was like, and then it's like, what do you want to be at the funeral? Who do you want to sing at the funeral? Who do you want to speak at the funeral? Is there going to be, and you were just on decision overload. And so stepping out of that and having a chance to reset, not everybody is maybe as blessed as we got to be with having this trip to Hawaii. And so we soaked that in. And my mom and my mother-in-law were just such epic supports that they stayed and looked after our daughter, and we didn't have anything to worry about. And then we just you come back, and I think, lots of people that necessarily don't have young children, like you can't stay in bed when you have a young child. Like they need food and to get up and going.
Yeah.
But I also created these healthy habits in the hospital of like getting up, making my bed, and showering every day. And I think sometimes it shocked the nursing staff because lots of parents don't, or you're just like, oh, I haven't showered for 4 days.
Right.
And I just feel disgusting if I haven't showered for a day. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And the act of water running on your body, the act of soaping, the act of starting fresh, the act of putting a habit into place to say that you've accomplished one thing, that is such a powerful tool for your mindset. And so I just use those tools that I had given myself in the hospital of like, you're showering, you're making your bed, and you're getting up. And I had my daughter to push me to do that. And so we just made sure that we just continued that when we got back from Hawaii, of like getting up, showering, planning things, getting out of the house, and not staying stagnant. And then, of course, I go through this roller coaster of emotions. And even now and today, my daughter will be like, what's wrong? And I'm just brutally honest with her. I'm saying, you know what? Mom's really missing Lewiston and having a hard time today. And so I'm, really frustrated, and I'm angry. And that I just explain the process to her. And I don't know if there's a right or a wrong way to do it. You all will grieve differently. But I think by including her in the process and not hiding it from her, has just made it open for her to have feelings too. And she had feelings and was bounced around, and, random strangers were looking after her some days. Yeah. And so we just, tried to create it as much as of our world and not hide things from her, include that. And I think that made a huge difference in making sure that we heal as a family and individually.
Yeah, I feel like my daughters, they don't love, like when they were younger, they didn't love seeing me cry. I remember like almost like a look of panic in their faces. Like it was like the whole world was crumbling around them if I would be crying about something. And I'm a very open person too. Like we talk about everything with them. And now as they've gotten older, I think it's been super healthy for me to not just be like thinking I need to hide what my emotions are, or thinking, oh, I shouldn't cry in front of them or show emotion in front of them because I don't want to alarm them, but rather, just like you said, like I'm having a really hard day today. This is what's going on, and choose whatever details need to be in or not in, but it doesn't need to be oh, it's nothing, it's fine, I'm just whatever, like blowing it off kind of like it isn't nothing, because I think being able to feel your feelings, in my opinion, some people are maybe born a little bit just more able to, just the way they naturally are, but I think that's a little bit learned. Like it's learned to be able to think that it's okay to show your feelings, and that it's not your feelings that are the issue, it's your reaction to them that often turns some feelings into negative things rather than the actual feeling itself.
Well, and in my book, I write, my husband, talked about this at our son's funeral. He did this beautiful tribute to Lewiston, and he wanted to use it as an opportunity. He's like, we've been gifted this platform, and he said it's event plus your reaction will equal your outcome every time. And it's okay the way to react angry. It's okay to react frustrated. It's okay to react hurt. Those are honest and true feelings. And, I follow Dr. Jody Carrington, and she says, she always says, you got to name it to tame it. And so I had to name my anger. I had to, so that, then I could get it under control. And I think that just really helps. You process those emotions when you're like, oh, I am angry. And what a beautiful gift to give your kids to be like, of course they're going to experience these things. Kids aren't just going to have this happy life with nothing that ever happens to them. So why not give them the tools and give them early to be like, hey, you may be experiencing this too, and here's how we can walk you through that. And here's 100%. How we can use, better learn those skills. If it isn't something that comes to you naturally, and for lots of us it doesn't, then we're giving our kids those skills to truly be able to process those emotions and filter through them in a much healthier way.
Yeah, and they just absorb things so quickly that it becomes second nature so much quicker than us learning how to do this as grown-ups.
Yeah. I mean, my daughter right now is like in the tantrum stage where it's like, okay, it's time to go to bed, and she'll literally just throw herself on the floor. She'll start stomping her feet and she'll like, I need 10 more minutes, and just starts crying and wailing. And I'm like, okay, I'm like, this is not an acceptable behavior to like stop stomping her feet, but she's learning how to like work through the emotions when all of a sudden something shocks her and she's like doesn't get it anymore. And so what a healthy process that we're working through, because I don't want her to be 25 throwing herself on the floor in the middle of the grocery store when she can't find her hot sauce that she's looking for, Even
though we all feel like doing that sometimes. Like, wouldn't it just be so liberating sometimes when you're like in the middle of somewhere, you just to like actually throw a tantrum the way that your insides feel like you want to sometimes?
Amen. Oh, yeah.
I remember my high school graduation so well, even though I'm celebrating my 20-year high school reunion this year. So many celebrations have had to be canceled because of the current state of the world, but that doesn't mean that a graduation milestone should be any less memorable. If you were on the lookout for a creative way to celebrate the graduate in your life, I've curated an adorable, delicious, and unique graduation sweet treat grazing box. A beautiful, delectable candy grazing box can be shipped right to your door or as a surprise to the graduate's doorstep, making them feel extra celebrated. Doorstep delivery is available in Saskatoon, and shipping is available across Canada. And because we could all use a little more joy right now, as a listener of Celebrating Simple Life, the podcast, you get an exclusive code to receive 15% off with the code CELEBRATE15. You can click right from home at celebratingsimplelife.com and use the code CELEBRATE15 because today is a great day to celebrate.
How then, moving forward, did you take this full circle experience and now turn it into the Love for Lewiston Foundation? How did you rally? I know you write in your book about how you started by just wanting to do like a fundraiser, and it wasn't obviously an instant foundation, but you just got friends together and brainstormed and things just came together. How did you then decide that was a way for you to turn this into something even more amazing and being able to honor his beautiful life?
It was on my heart. I mean, I think so many of us live life and we're like, I wish God would just send me a memo and tell me exactly what I'm supposed to do. Like, what's your life purpose? Mm-hmm. And as much as I didn't want to admit it, if you read the book, you'll understand how before my son got this crazy rare genetic disease diagnosis, I had been working with a family locally, very close with them, and, helping them acquire what they needed and doing fundraising. So I'd already done this for 12 years or 9 years, whatever the math was, before my own kid gets the diagnosis. I'm like, people wait their whole life to figure out what they're supposed to do, or, maybe don't even step into it because they don't listen to the nudges or they're too scared to take the risk or the leap. And I was like, God literally handed and said, Jessica, this is the work that you need to be in and doing. And when I finally stepped forward and recognized that and pressed into it, that's where the blessings just started to come. And every time that we'd hit an obstacle or something became challenging, we always found a door to go through, a window would open, the right people would rally alongside of us. And so, it was birthed from, even before my son was helping with family, mm-hmm. and anyone with spinal muscular atrophy, they usually have very soft-spoken voices because to speak, it requires muscles and your diaphragm, and that's powered by your muscles. And so I have very loud-spoken and aggressive in your face, and usually people with spinal muscular atrophy are very gentle and kind and patient, and I'm like impatient, in your face, super loud and aggressive. And so, we have this beautiful marriage and partnership, and so I just knew I had to do something, and it wasn't enough. Once we hosted this birthday party, my goal was like, I just want to raise $10,000 just to thank the hospital, thank the hospice, thank the hospital for what they're doing for us. And that just really snowballed when we saw how effective and efficient, we could be as a group. I was just like, people are good. People want to believe in something. And I think sometimes people want to step up, but they're maybe not invited to, or they don't know where to. And so I just kept on putting out a call to action, and people just kept stepping up. And the call to action was so incredible that every time I'd be like, hey, I need someone to help me figure out a Google spreadsheet on Excel. Boom, 20 offers. Hey,
right.
we need a sponsor for, and like, I just kept putting myself out there. And that being said, I hope whoever's listening, and maybe you're discouraged because you're in a season of whatever, you got to keep pressing through. And I think you said that you're going to get knocked down, you're going to be challenged, and the goal is simply that you just have to keep getting back up. And you've done it once before, so why can't you do it again now? And I kept on getting so encouraged and so inspired by people saying, hey, we're here to help. Hey, we want to do something. And every time when I don't have the idea, someone else beautiful comes along. And when you invite people into your story and into your journey, and when you say, hey, will you be part of something, and you place that invitation, people are inherently good, and you see that goodness come out.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you referenced this in the book too, which I just found so relatable, is that you yourself in your personality are used to doing acts of kindness and wanting to look out for people that are in your circle and around you and perfect strangers, and whatever comes your way, you're open to these acts of kindness, and yet hard to receive. It's easier to give than to receive them. You wrote at one point in your book, and I was like, that is so how I often feel in life, where you don't think anything of the idea that of course you want to support and help people around you, or something crosses your path and your heart just immediately is like, yes, how do we fix this? How do we make this feel even a little bit better for somebody else? But when it's coming to you, I don't know if this is a woman thing or if this is just personality by personality, but I find it so hard to accept help. And asking for help has been such a thing that keeps coming at me in my life, and something that I have to continue to work through to tell myself that it's a gift to somebody, that I can accept something that they are wanting to give, and they want to be a part of the story, and I need to let them in.
And isn't that such a beautiful thing, is like letting people in, and they really want to do that. The other thing that I've learned, which I think is really interesting, is you have to let go of your expectation of where the help should come from. Like, it's a really powerful thing when you let go of the expectations. Like, I expect these friends to step up in this way. Every time we do something, it's sometimes complete strangers that they're in the position to write the check, or they're in the position to give their time, and I cannot place expectations, especially, you have this expectation of your best friends that they're going to do all the things, but maybe they're not in a season of life where they are in that position, or it's the cause doesn't tug their heart because they don't have kids, and your other friends who maybe you weren't as close with do have friends, and so it just speaks so much clearer to them. And so let go of expectations of who you think should help you and how they should think helping you, and just be open to the help. And that's where then those blessings have come through, because it's like, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to control all of the narrative, but I'm going to open up the narrative and then watch the blessings flow in.
Right. Oh, I love that. So has the Love for Lewiston Foundation been a healing process for you?
1,000%, but it's also been a dangerous, slippery slope. And I say that because no one runs into pain and presses into pain unless you're kind of like sick and twisted. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But no one's like, oh, this is so painful, I'm just going to sit in the pain. Oh, I'm just going to be here.
I'm going to stay here for a while.
Yeah. I literally, like, right before this, I had a call with my life coach, and so a couple weeks before this, the call was, she's like, Jess, maybe you're just supposed to be in the pain right now. And I'm like, Heather, I want out of the pain. I don't like being in pain. I hate the pain. I'm like, give me the tool for the next step. And she's like, this is the next step, Jess. Like, this step is. And so when I say that, I was listening to Mel Robbins, and I had like my aha moment where it's like, oh my gosh, I continue to run from the pain. I keep myself so busy. I put myself on the hamster wheel. I do all the things. I'm at every event. I'm, kissing all the babies and waving and shaking hands and, networking and doing all this stuff. And I think part of it was to avoid some of the deep hurt and the deep pain. And then that manifested itself for me in like not having the marriage that I wanted, because I wasn't putting the time and attention into it. And so you have to be really careful. But my encouragement and what I hope to tell people is like, you do have to press into the pain, but what a beautiful tool, because for me, I treat our foundation, and it's so important, and the work that we do, we want to help other families and use our stories. And it was so healing for me. And it is hard. It's hard now because there is a treatment. It's hard now because they are thinking that they're close to a cure. It's hard now because babies that are born in 2019 and 2020, like, they can access treatment like at the snap of a finger. And I was like, oh, God, that's so frustrating. It's like, how come you get to save their lives, but you didn't save Lewiston's? Mm-hmm. And a boy that got diagnosed at the same time as Lewiston, he was able to access treatment about a month and a half before Lewiston, and he's still alive. And it's just, our story was written differently, and I've accepted that. And so the foundation has been a massive healing process for me, such a blessing. I'm so glad I've done it. But it also, you have to be very careful about how much you run and hide from the pain and you don't press into it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that is incredible. So incredible. So how do you, from a place of, you're talking about, you talk with a life coach and you work on your mental health and you're like self-discovering constantly and figuring out how to move forward in life, especially with so much on the go. What do you do for self-care on a regular basis in order to kind of keep your mindset in a place where joy is top of mind versus slipping into the darkness for long periods of time?
I mean, for me, sometimes it's just as simple as getting my nails done.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I like feeling and looking good. Who doesn't? You know what I mean? And I think that self-care for me has been, okay, I'm going to shower and do my hair and curl it and put on makeup. I put on makeup pretty much every day. I don't necessarily always feel like I have to, but that's part of me of like feeling like, okay, I'm getting ready and I'm putting my best foot forward.
Right.
I love getting my nails done, both my toes and my hands. COVID was so hard for me because I literally I kept my nails on. I'd have the nail girls would be like, please, like, let go of your nails and just use, like, they sent me a kit and they're like, use the kit to take them off. Like, it is time to say goodbye. And they were so ratchet. You know, it's stuff like waxing your legs and feeling good. But I think on a daily basis, it's working out. Whether it's going for, you know, a run or a walk. I work out with two of my girlfriends. I'm someone that's an obliger, so when I have a date set with somebody, I can't change that. So that's been, like, really healing for me. If I can get to the spa, frick, like, hello. And, you know, for a massage or just taking that time out, especially I feel like when I'm in that type of setting, and it's not like I go to a spa every week. I'm going to sound like I'm some spoiled jerk face here. But it's like the little things that I do for myself to make me feel my best. And then I journal in gratitude every morning. I get up before my family does, so I have time to myself because I'm a better human being when I've had that time, and I'm then, you know, grounded, centered, working from a place of gratitude and alignment rather than in reaction mode where my kids are waking me up and I'm behind the 8 ball and everything's, you know, crap hitting the fan. And so it's small, different things all the time. You know, even self-care for me is like having a hot French press in my favorite mug. I call those joy starters. So I'm looking for the joy starters all throughout the day. You know, my lunch today is a kale salad filled with strawberries and goat cheese, and it's like freaking delicious. And it's like, that's self-care for me. It's like fueling my body properly. So there's such a long list, and I think I just know what works for me and where I need to be, and that's eating healthy. It's working out, and it's doing small things so that I can look and feel my best, because then that helps translate my heart. And that's a journaling piece to really deal with the inner turmoil.
Totally. Well, and I agree with you. I think self-care sometimes is just such a broad term that does, I think, sometimes for some reason make it seem like the only way to self-care is to have a full spa day. And if you can't do that, then you're never going to feel taken care of. But
totally.
You're right. Like, it's really just knowing yourself. And I think that sort of comes back to the feeling your feelings and being able to identify, what am I feeling right now? Is there something that I could do that might make myself feel better in this moment than I do? Is that eating something good? Is that going and moving rather than sitting at my desk? Is that, whatever the case may be, right? To just be able to identify those things unto itself is a self-care act.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. So, okay, so to wrap up our conversation here, I like asking a similar set of questions at the end of each conversation to get real life, Jess, what's going on behind the snippets that maybe we don't see. So you've alluded to this first question already in what you just were chatting about self-care, but what is one thing you do in the morning that sets the tone for the day?
I wake up and I make a French press, the active, the slow process. Grind my beans. I have a certain wooden spoon, and I drink it out of a very expensive pottery mug that's made by a local artisan here. I love that I could support someone locally, but the way that the coffee tastes in the mug, that for me, just a small, simple routine and getting up before everybody else, massive, massive, massive difference in how my day flows.
It's like a trigger to your brain that it's like, okay, this is where we're at now.
Totally. And sitting down and journaling and getting into the Word and doing a devotional and just like, verbally vomiting all the things that are in my head that I'm struggling with, that process while drinking my hot coffee has been a game changer for me, just being like, owning those feelings and where I'm at.
I love that. I just received the coolest new mug. My birthday was at the beginning of June. And my sister-in-law, my bestie, who actually lives in Calgary as well, she ordered me this cool mug off of Etsy that an artist had illustrated, and it was a Jonathan Van Ness Queer Eye mug that has an illustration of him and all kinds of cool sayings and little things that you think of when you think of Jonathan, and it makes me happy every single day.
Isn't it crazy? And it's like this special little mug, but it's like that can totally just, it puts a smile. That's a joy starter. It's like you're looking for the joy starters. Yeah.
Totally. I love it. You're French press coffee, but if you're out and about grabbing a coffee, what's your coffee order?
It's an Americano, and then with room, I like the shots upside down, so they pour the shots on top of the water so they don't get burnt. And then I add cream, and if I can, I'll sprinkle cinnamon or cinnamon dolce sprinkles on top.
Ooh, good order.
Uh-huh.
What is one thing that you always have to have in your bag or purse day to day or when you're traveling that you just cannot live without?
There's a long list, but my top 5 products, I use Beauty Counter's lip gloss and opal. I use Cobalt Blue 5 gum. I have a palm mist spray that helps me feel really fresh, and my inhaler. Those products I cannot leave my house without.
Love it. Good list. You have your bag stocked, ready to go.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So you spoke to this already about self-care and about your nails and how that is like a thing that you do. So one thing you do for self-care to protect your mental health, I love that you said getting ready and just showering, making your bed, putting on makeup, and it doesn't matter if those are all the things, but I love that those 3 are just your routine. I think that is so basic, and by basic, I mean great, because I think it's easy to think that the basic things don't matter.
But they do.
They do.
Like, there's a commencement speech, which is where I heard this, and when I heard it, it was like my aha moment. But this admiral gives this commencement speech. You can Google it. And he's like, make your bed, because once you've accomplished that one thing for the day, you're now setting the tone that you can accomplish things for the rest of your day. So it's just like a natural progress from there. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. And I don't think we sometimes realize, I know for myself that if I have, for whatever reason, gotten up and not just quickly made my bed, which takes 2 seconds because it's not like things are going so catastrophic with blankets in the night that you can't just quickly tuck your bed and make it look neat and nice. Mm-hmm. But when I walk in and out of my room for the whole rest of the day without realizing it, my brain is happy. Looking at the bed that it's made, even if there's chaos in other places, it somehow triggers my brain, and I can feel it when it's not made, where I'm like, ugh. Like, it like makes me grumble to walk in because it just feels like everything has been chaotic around me for some reason.
It's way less overwhelming, right? You're like, your room doesn't feel a disaster. Gretchen Rubin writes a book called Outer Order, Inner Calm. Yeah. And I really believe that's true. It's like when you have the out of order, if you're someone that can thrive in chaos, and, I can't. When people mess up stuff, like if someone asks me where something is in my kitchen, I can be like top left drawer towards the back on the right hand. You know what I mean? Like that's how detailed I can be. Yeah. And everything has a spot, because for me, that's how I function better.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think sometimes, though, like you're totally right. There are definitely people that can handle themselves better in chaos than others. But I would beg to differ that if there is any type of issue that is going on in somebody's life and they don't think the chaos has anything to do with it, that would be like the first place to start. And just see, does that maybe make a difference?
Totally.
So in closing, what would be one piece of advice that you would leave my listeners today as they listen to this conversation and are like, okay, wow, bringing the joy, now what? How do I move forward on my day from here?
Make your damn bed. Go have a shower. I mean, I wish I could have like this inspirational thing, but honestly, here's the thing. Life is going to get hard. It's going to get really hard. My life got really hard. I had to hold my son and wonder each breath if he was going to have another. And that's a horrible thing. It's a horrible, hard thing. But if I can rise up from that and have this beautiful, like I truly am living my dream life. I mean, there's a long list of stuff. I want to furnish my house, and I have a living room that like literally is a holding cell. And, you know, there's all these things, but it's truly how you look at it. And I believe that I am living my dream life. I have a dream partner, and I put in the work. I wish that there was, like, there isn't all these complicated things. I really believe James Clear writes this thing, a book called Atomic Habits, and it's about how these small habits really have this massive impact. I think we're all waiting for this, like, massive moment to shift in our life, and then because of that one big shift, everything is better. But 9 times out of 10, you hear these people and they just are like, oh, I stayed consistent, like for weight loss or, you know, for your business. It's like, I just didn't give up. I just kept pressing in. And that's where the magic happens. So it's like press into your daily habits, press into reaching for joy and bringing the joy. And like the simple question of like, how can I bring joy today? Okay, you know what? I'm in the drive-through lineup. I'm going to buy the person behind me coffee. Okay, what's the next thing that you were nudged to do? Oh, you look beautiful today. I literally go up to strangers. I'm like, girlfriend, I'm not hitting on you, I swear. But I just want to say I love your outfit and you look bomb. You know what I mean? And it's like, and that person will be so caught off guard, and then they smile, and you can see their shoulders lift. And it's like, joy is in the simple things. Joy is in the nudges. So my advice to readers or to listeners is like, have the dang shower, make your dang bed, and then start to feel and look for those nudges. And the key to bring the joy is not only like hear the nudges, but then to respond to the nudges.
Oh, my goodness. I could talk to you all day. This is beautiful, and thank you for that. It is the simple things, and I love how you have just so eloquently yet simply stated this all in your book. And go grab the book, people. This is going to be the thing to bring yourself joy this week. Will be going to get this book. So I will tag your website and social channels in the notes for the podcast so that everyone listening today can follow along and keep following how you're bringing the joy. Thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you so much. I'm so thankful to be here.
A few summers ago, we were putting in a new fence in our backyard and made sure to contact Sask Energy first. They want you to know what's below. Hitting an underground utility line can be costly and very dangerous. Always plan ahead. Get a line locate for any digging projects you have going on this summer, like if you happen to be building a deck or putting in a new fence. It's absolutely free to have Sask Energy come out, and it will definitely allow you to stay safe and save yourself the expense of contacting an underground utility line. Visit clickbeforeyoudig.com to request your free line locate today. This show would not be possible without you, my incredible listeners. It would mean the world to me if you would subscribe to Celebrating Simple Life on Apple Podcasts or download and listen on Spotify, Google Podcasts, or wherever you choose to listen. If you really want to make my day, leave a review. These reviews, ratings, and sharing screenshots of podcast episodes that were engaging for you on your Instagram stories and tagging friends that you think should hear the episode too really helps the podcast grow. It makes me so happy that I often select reviews to read on the show, and if yours is chosen, you will receive a special gift from me. Thank you for being a part of my mission to connect stories of business and life. Cheers to Celebrating Simple Life.